Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and happy Halloween to each and every one of you out there. Welcome to the Halloween holiday edition of the Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, of course, joined by, I don't know who he is right now, but he's formerly known as the young prodigy CJ Vogel, also a lifetime Longhorn, and we're joined by the coach, our coach, former high school football coach at Bernie, Capel, Brownwood, Belton, Rotan, also played college football at Abilene Christian, coach there, and multiple stints also on the staff of the University of Texas for multiple head coaches. It is our coach, Coach Bob Shipley. You can catch his work at shipleyranches.com. What's up, Coach? How you doing?
Golly, CJ looking a little like Earl Campbell.
Wait a minute, Coach. Come on. How am I looking, guys?
Let's see. What? Yeah, look at that.
There you go.
Look at that.
I like it.
A bobblehead soon here, you know? Come on.
I just want to know, do you have a piece between your cheek and gum like I do right now? Because if you're an imposter, Earl, you won't be able to handle it.
Yeah,
if you're a Skull brother, you can handle it.
Yeah, man. Skull brother. Most people don't remember that, man. So he was the original Skull brother. That's
yes,
back
he
in the
was.
I'm a Love Your Blue guy, Coach. So I remember them back in the day, man. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I love Earl twice. I love him as a Longhorn, but also love him as an Oiler. I'm a Texans fan now. For everybody who wants to know, Texans playing tonight, so that's why I'm representing my Texans. All right, my Lucha Libre mask. All right, getting ready to go. If I had by the way, I am looking for a Longhorn Lucha Libre mask. I cannot find one. They are really tough to find. I know there's some out there. I've seen them at tailgates before. I've seen them. I just can't find them online. So if y'all have access to a Longhorn themed Lucha Libre mask, I would love one. Just throwing it out there. Hit me up. All right. Throw it out there in the chat, whatever you got. So it says, where's Bob Ross? CJ, that should have been.
Afro didn't come in time. It's tough to at the Afro. It would have been in here. Trust me, I would have been painting away, drawing up more plays on the notepad.
I love it.
Didn't come in.
I love it. All right, you guys know how this works. The Winning Drive is dedicated to you. It's all about you. So all your questions, all your comments, we'll throw them out there. We'll address as many of them as we can. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. We're going to look at this as kind of our mid-season review. Even though we're past the midway point, we do have the second bye week for the Longhorns going into their week versus Florida. So we don't have an opponent to preview. We're past the Vandy game. We've pretty much reviewed and slapped it up and flipped it and rubbed it down every which way we can. So we're moving on now. We're looking to a mid-season review. So we'll just kind of ask the panel different questions about the team. If you have questions about the team, and then we'll try to address those. So I got about 10 or so questions that we'll throw out there about the team, and we'll have a mid-season review discussion about the Longhorns. But of course, you can always interrupt that, and we'll answer as many of your questions as we can. There are also some other topics we'll throw out there. But it's Halloween, so happy Halloween. All right, gentlemen, let's have some Halloween discussion first here. Favorite Halloween candy? What's the go-to? What's your priority when you're ranking your Halloween candy here? What we got? What's number one for you?
Oh man, you got to start with like a Twix or something, right? Twix easy number one. I'm a pink Laffy Taffy guy too. I'm always a sweet candy guy. Skittles, come on, Starburst, sign them up. I'm load up my candy bag with them. That's for sure.
Yep, that's true. Coach, what about you, man? What's the top candy in your candy rankings here? What's your power rankings when it comes to Halloween candy?
Okay. Reese's followed closely by Snickers.
Yes, that's true. Snickers that's kind of the standard of the candy to me. It kind of starts with the Snickers there. I ain't gonna lie, Coach. I'm with you. Yes, I agree with that 100%.
Hey, have you ever frozen a Snickers?
I have not frozen it. I had them cold.
The ice cream, the Snickers ice cream bars, Coach. Have you? Come on.
Yeah, but this ain't This is the real frozen Snickers.
Those we take the actual frozen Snickers. There you go. All right, that's the way to go. All right, Coach. I'm gonna put one in the fridge. When I get me one doing our trick or treating, I'm gonna put one in the fridge. I'm like, Coach told me to do it. I'm gonna get it done. All right, you want to try that out? All right, we're hoping for.
My rule is if you're not wearing a costume, you don't get any candy.
Wow. I like that.
No costume, no candy. If you're over 13, I don't care if you got a costume on. No candy for you.
What? Hey, Coach, you better watch that, man. Them teenagers, they play dirty now. You deny them candy. They will come and toilet paper your house. They will start egging that house, man. That's part of the trick or the treat. You want the trick or the treat. You get the trick instead of the treat, man. If I don't get a treat, you don't get the trick. You don't want that.
I got your trick. Right here, baby. Boom.
No, you're right. No, there is Halloween etiquette. I agree with that, Coach. You can't be coming around getting candy just dressed in your normal wear. You can't do that. I agree with you.
That's lazy, man.
That is lazy.
Put something into it, kids.
I got a lot of candy at the house. I will say this around my neighborhood, and I hope this is not the case for everybody else. I will say the excitement and enthusiasm for trick-or-treating has started to wane a bit. I take a lot of pride in being the house with a lot of candy. I give out handfuls. I've had to keep a lot of candy since COVID, and I'm hoping this year we get, kind of a resurgence of the excitement and enthusiasm with Halloween. So I'm excited about tonight. All right. Before we get to some of the questions we got, we'll get into a lot of those, of course. But let me thank one of our sponsors, of course, our friends over at Duck Camp. Before we get started, I usually have my Duck Camp stuff on. Actually, I just got my Duck Camp stuff in the mail from the fall selection, and I'm really excited. Wife was like, "What's this big box? What did you order?" I was like, "I didn't order anything." Oh, turns out it was my Duck Camp. So I'm celebrating not only Halloween, I'm celebrating my new Duck Camp gear that I got in the mail earlier today. But Duck Camp produces premium outdoor goods for the outdoor spirit in all of us. Duck Camp is dedicated to providing the best outdoor goods so you can outdoor good, whether you're an avid hunter or a fisherman, or whether you prefer the camaraderie of the campsite and the campfire like me. Duck Camp is a brand that understands the culture of outdoor living and the good times and good friends that come along with living an outdoor lifestyle. Go check out their new fall selection. Trust me, folks, you'll love it. I've already ordered several items from it. It is duckcamp.com. So you can go check it out. The new fall selection is excellent. Go check it out at duckcamp.com. And thank you very much for sponsoring the winning drive. All right, gentlemen, let's start with kind of our mid-season, even though we're a little bit past the mid-season. I'm calling it a mid-season review. I got some questions for you guys about the team, and then we can kind of open it up and for a discussion about the answer. My first question for you guys about the team: who is your mid-season MVP? Offense and defense. Who is your mid-season MVP? You got something for me, CJ? A mid-season MVP for the team?
Yeah, I like Anthony Hill. I think that's probably a safe pick. He's been tremendous. He was your best player in Dallas against Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. He's been the focal point of your defense in the middle of the field. In a year in which you didn't understand or maybe didn't know what would happen with the sideline communication to the helmet communication, what's going to happen there? Well, it's been Anthony Hill kind of leading the way with that defense. They still look to the sideline. They still talk to Anthony Hill, but for him to be in the middle of the field, a guy that they don't take off the field very often, he's been tremendous in your biggest games. That's who you kind of build upon in that middle of the defense. And listen, I don't know if there's a defense better in the country right now than the way the Texas defense is playing right now.
It's hard to argue with that one. He's the green dot guy. To be the green dot guy on the best defense in the country says a lot. Coach, what are your thoughts? Who's your mid-season MVP for the Longhorns?
I got to go with Jahdae Barron.
Hey.
He's leading the team in interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. And, he's just right place, right time kind of guy. And I know you probably thought I'd go with an offensive guy, but we got some work to do on the offense. So I'm going with Jahdae Barron.
That's good, Coach. Yeah, that's good. Coach is kind of going with mine. It's crazy. We're all going defense here because the defense, I believe right now, that is the identity of this team, even though Sark's known for offense. They got all the big name guys on offense. They have, obviously, proven commodities offensively. But this year, if you've been watching Texas football for the first half of the season, there's no doubt the most consistent element of this team is the defense. And I'm going with Jahdae. Hard for me not to do that because I'm a DB. Card carrying member of DBU like myself. And now we finally got a Thorpe Award semi-finalist, but potentially a finalist coming up too with Jahdae Barron. I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron as a lockdown corner as my MVP so far for the season for the Longhorns. All right, how about this? Who is your most pleasant surprise? Who is the most pleasant surprise among the team, in your opinion, so far? I'll start with you, Coach.
Gunnar Helm.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a guy. I remember this, and I've apologized for this many times to many people. But last year, I called him, before the season started, I called him, he's serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you won't lose games because of him, but you won't win games. He's just kind of a guy, a jag, just a guy, But I'm going to tell you what, he's made me a believer, and I believe he is my most pleasant surprise of the 24 season for the Longhorns.
I like that. That's probably universally accepted as the surprise, and I can't disagree with it. If I can go I'll counter, obviously, just for the sake of conversation. I was a big believer in Leonga Lafau coming into the year. You know, he's a guy that I thought had the tools. He was up to about 6'2.5", 6'3" coming in, got up to about 230 pounds, trimmed down just a little bit. Just how do you get him on the field? And Texas found a way. His complementary aspect of him and Anthony Hill on the field together has been tremendous. Every single game that he's been seeing extended snaps for the Longhorns defensively, think about it. He's forced a safety, has an interception. He's a big forced fumble guy, couple sacks on the year. Feels like he just plays havoc football while in control, and you pair him up next to Anthony Hill, and that's a heck of a linebacker combination right now. You'll see him continue to increase his snaps over the final 4 games of the year. I've been very pleased with the way that he's kind of come along and inserted himself into this defense for the Texas Longhorns. He's going to be a heck of a player when it's all said and done.
I like that one, and I will vouch CJ has been on the Leonga Lafau bandwagon for some time. Even in the offseason, he was singing the praises. I'm going to go someone different because I like all of those. I'm going to go Trey Wisner here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Trey Wisner. With all the injuries at running back, we've talked about, there's been obviously a lackluster running game, but I think he has been really a bright spot in the running game. Expectations were really high for, CJ Baxter and, for the running game. I think Jaden Blue, obviously in the offseason. And obviously things have not worked out necessarily for Jaden Blue the way that we all expected. But Trey Wisner stepped into what was a void really at running back and really filled it up. I think filled that void pretty nicely. So I'm going to go with Trey Wisner as my pleasant surprise. I did not expect that from him, stepping up in big games. I love that. Coach has that West Texas badass costume, nailed it to a T. Yep, you got it. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what it is. You're damn right. All right, that's a good. What player's been the biggest, most pleasant surprise? How about this one? And this one, for me, what position group for the Longhorns has been the most impressive? We might all have the same selection here. What position group for you guys has been the most impressive so far past the midway point of the season?
Now, is this biggest, best position group or most surprise?
Best. No, best. This your best position group. You think that this is just the best position group right now for the Longhorns? The way they perform, depth, whatever it may be.
Now, it's the secondary, and if I can tone it down even more, I would even say safeties. Because I think every single one of them has performed at a very elite level, and that's including Jelani McDonald, who made his first career start this past weekend, right? Andrew Makuba was the Thorpe Player of the Week earlier this year. Michael Taff, tremendous, right? Secondary as a whole, because you can throw in Jahdae Barron as well at the cornerback spot, Manny Muhammad. But if I could pick one specific spot, one specific room, it's that safety room. I've been very pleased with them. It's been night and day from what we've seen a year ago to what we're seeing this year. And Texas desperately needed that. The way that this defense has stepped up, I think it starts with those safeties in the back end, not letting anything over the back of their head.
Yeah, that's a good one. Jelani McDonald was fantastic last week. He really was. That was one of the best safety performances I've seen all year long, and that's a guy that's running your second and third string. Coach, what about you? Best position group so far this season?
Well, I would just go overall with the defensive secondary. I was very critical of them in the offseason and in two-a-days, and, they've really become a strength of this team. And so I'll go with just the defensive backs as in general.
Yep. You know what? I'm a DB. Hard not to go that route with you guys. I think you could go with, wide receivers here too as a group that's just been really impressive. I mean, you've had 4 different wide receivers lead you in receiving so far this year. You've had Bun, Wingo, Moore that have led you in receiving at one point. Golden has done it too. It's just 4 different receivers. That's how deep that group is. I said by the end of the season, you'd have a different leading receiver in half the game so far this year. I've been really impressed with that group, and you've had to do it with different quarterbacks, and they've still been productive. Now, and we're still waiting on guys like Jonte Cook, waiting on guys like Silas Bowden, and yet we've seen really an embarrassment of riches at that position. So for the sake of argument, I agree with you guys about the DB, but man, I think the wide receiver position has really met those really high expectations we had for it in offseason. You can make the argument exceeded those really high expectations we had in offseason and still there's a lot more improvement I think that group can make. So I'll go wide receiver for the sake of the discussion that we're having about the mid-season review for the Longhorns. All right, before we continue, let me give a shout out to our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery for sponsoring the winning drive. We really appreciate our friends over at Flat Creek. And if you are looking for something to do, you're looking for a great place to visit, or you're just looking for the best wine around, how about Flat Creek Estate Winery, folks? Just minutes from downtown Austin. They've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan, and it's now available at your local Specs. They have it at their local Central Market. It is fantastic. One of my wife's favorite wines as well. And of course, Flat Creek not only produces some of the best wines out there, but they also have a gorgeous venue that is hosts wine tastings and barbecues every single weekend. Perfect for a date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. Go check out flatcreekestate.com. You can go check out their fantastic inventory, or you can go check them out for yourself in person at Flat Creek Estate Winery. That's flatcreekestate.com. We really appreciate them for sponsoring the winning drive. That's flatcreekestate.com. All right, we know we got some questions. We'll get to some of those as well. I got a couple other questions I want to throw out there for the mid-season review. Then we'll take a break, answer some questions, and get back to it. All right, guys, how about this one? What has been the most underwhelming or the biggest disappointment for you for the Longhorns this season? Biggest disappointment so far. Coach, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, obviously our running back situation, our quarterback situation is the product of injuries, in my opinion. So I don't know that I can be disappointed with the room, because I'm certainly disappointed with the injuries that we've had that have caused us to be disappointed with our quarterback play and our running back play. But I think when both are healthy, certainly not disappointment. So just a disappointment in general, I would say the offensive line. I mean, it's just we've still got talented running backs back there. We've still got talented quarterbacks back there. They're just not getting the protection or the blocking that they need consistently. It's certainly at the certain games, they look like they're going to win, the Offensive Line of the Year award. Than others, they look like, we're 10 years ago, how we were playing or whatever. So I would have to say the offensive line for me is probably the biggest disappointment.
I like that. Yeah. And it's been underwhelming, especially the last 3 weeks, right? Started with Oklahoma. Georgia was the exclamation. And Vanderbilt, of course, kind of piled on. It's probably a really good answer there. I'll go with Quinn. And it hurts me to say that, but he just hasn't been good, and he's been serviceable. I don't think, aside from the Georgia game, Texas has been able to move the ball. They've been able to put points on the board. He hasn't been the sole root of the issue, but he's not been the guy that we expected coming into the year, right? And maybe he was going to be before the injury. We'll never know. But right now, that was the guy that was expected to lead Texas to a number 1 ranking. He did that. He was supposed to be the guy in New York for a Heisman. He won't be there. And he's supposed to be a guy that's going first round in the NFL playoff or the NFL draft next year. I don't think we can expect him there right now. Now, of course, these 4 next games are going to be huge for what his draft stock will be. 2 road games, right, against really talented teams, 2 teams that are tough places to play at. Now, if that's going to be the quarterback that you expect to go in this conversation to carry on that 5-star legacy and to be a guy that was developed by Sarkisian and is supposed to lead your team, that's games where you rebound, and that Georgia game was just a one-off. But right now, I don't know if I believe that to be the case. And that kind of sucks, because that was the entire expectation coming into the year, was that he's the guy that leads you to a national championship this year.
Yeah.
So while we've still seen good moments out of Quinn, I want to see more. And this goes back to the offseason conversation that the 3 of us had, that for Quinn specifically, it's all about putting the cape on. Be the hero. Be the guy that is the undisputed best football player on the field. We've not seen that this year. Maybe we would have, because he was 14-16 against ULM prior to the injury, but that's not necessarily what we've seen since he's come back. So hopefully this bye week gets him back to where we saw prior to the injury, because, man, that would be huge for Texas. If we just saw even half of what Texas had at quarterback, or even on the offense side of the ball prior to the Quinn injury, coming back with the way that this defense is playing, you'll be in the conversation for being the best football team in the country. Right now, you're far from it.
Yeah. No, it's a good breakdown there. And, It's hard for me not to agree with Coach on this one and go with the O-line. Every other position has been affected by injury. Even Quinn, right? He got the injury that he was dealing with. But, man, the offensive line actually has been relatively healthy. And they have underachieved and been underwhelming so far in pass protection and in run blocking. Tex-Mex Horn 94, the special teams was going to be second for me. I agree with you. Special teams overall. Hard to say overall, but it's more punting. It's more punting than special teams. I think you want to be specific. And so special teams overall, I don't know if I'd go, but punting has been very underwhelming. And you haven't gotten the splash plays that were expected out of your return game, too. So I'll give that to Tex-Mex Horn 94. It's a good point. So special teams was really high on my list. I'll go with Coach on the O-line on that one. How about this one? What do you think was the best play call of the year, your favorite play call of the year? From Sark. You got a favorite play call that you've seen? I think I got one. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. That 4th and 1 in the Georgia game that ended around Wingo, it took a lot of scones, man. That was that took a lot of scones against Georgia to run that kind of play, and Georgia's been there just beating you down, and you go with a freshman too, by the way, with the ending around. That took some guts. Took some, and it was one. We Longhorn fans who watch the Longhorns, we know that plays money for you. You getting 20-some yards a pop when you run the end and around with the wide receiver, and start calling it on I think it was a 4th and 1 if I'm not mistaken. But that might have been one of my favorite calls because I didn't expect it, and when I saw it, I was like, no, oh yeah. It's when it was like at first I'm like, no, yeah. So that might have been the one that got me out of my seat.
Ballsy call to do that against Georgia and their speed. I like the Michigan reverse to Ryan Wingo that went for about 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one for me. I would have loved even more of the double pass to Matthew Golden because I would have been tooting my horn calling that on the show a little bit had that been completed for a touchdown. Sark calling it again against Oklahoma. I kind of like the second one more because that was a heck of a play by Gunnar Helm to go up there and snag that. But
mossed it.
What a play.
Yeah, that was a moss play. Coach, you got one?
I got to go with you, man. I think that play in Georgia was up to this point the best play call of the year for me.
It was gutsy. It was just a gutsy call. It was
very gutsy.
Yeah, because the traditional run game wasn't working. So he was like, all right, I got to go with the non-traditional run game. I'm like, good for you, sir. Good for you. All right, let me ask you this. Who's the culture warrior of this group? Every year it seems to be one. Who's their culture warrior? The guy that carries that epitomizes what the culture is all about. You've seen it on the field now enough to know that this is the guy or one of the guys.
Ooh, Michael Taff. Hands down. I think it's Michael Taff. And he's had to earn his keep, right? Even with the Texas fans, right? A couple of years ago was why is this guy on the field? Well, every week, basically, you're seeing more and more as to why and why he's kind of one of the many faces of this defense. He's been tremendous. And that game against Vanderbilt this past weekend was probably the best that he's played statistically. He was everywhere. He was the total game breaker on the field. And my goodness, he's playing his way into draft contention next year. I don't think that was ever going to be the case for him at Texas as a walk-on, as a guy that had to earn reps and kind of earn the trust of not just the coaching staff, but the fans. And now you're looking at him saying, yeah, I want that guy in the middle of the field because I know he's going to be in the right spot. He's going to give hustle. He's going to give effort. And he's going to make plays. He's been tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been. Coach, you got a culture warrior? Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, well, Gunner, Michael Taff would have been it. But just to make it interesting, I will say Gunnar Helm.
Mm-hmm.
Gunnar Helm, is a guy who just gives it everything he's got, every snap. He continues to amaze me with some of his athletic ability, whether it's hurtling over players or staying in bounds when it looks like he was going to go out, or walking the tightrope or whatever. I feel like he is really done a great job in this culture of not only buying into the culture, but showing it on the field. Anybody can talk about it, but to go out and do it with that kind of effort every snap is that's impressive to me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I saw some great ones being suggested there in the chat. So to keep it interesting, because I'm with you. I love Taft Daddy's story. It's inspiring, does epitomize the culture. There's no doubt. But I love that DeAndre Moore one. That's a good one. He was also high on my list. It's the guy that we heard about in the offseason, right? He learned of the Jay Witt, another culture warrior for Texas. So he studied under Jay Witt. He's a guy that gets out to practice early. He's the first guy out there to get out to practice. And we've heard, in the offseason, so many coaches be very complimentary of DeAndre Moore and his approach and, his work ethic. And then to go through the first part of the season and not even remember the Michigan game, he got the target, got a touchdown, and it was taken off the board because of a penalty. And he would go like games without even a target. It seems like everybody else early on, they were getting their shine, right? They were getting their spotlight. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden early on, even Ryan Wingo. And then we finally start to see DeAndre Moore break through. And not only that, I see him in the last game, he's downing a punt deep in opposing territory. So he's on special teams too. And he's scoring touchdowns for you. He's just, and Quinn trusts him. Quinn trusts him to make a check while he's crossing the formation on a pre-snap motion play that ended up being a touchdown on the slot fade because he knows, I can trust this guy. I can just tell him the route, boom, and he'll go out there, run it with the right leverage in mind, have the right release, beat his guy, and we can connect on a touchdown on the road. I mean, DeAndre Moore is definitely one of those guys for me that has embodied the culture, epitomizes the culture for Texas because he hasn't, that wide receiver room is deep, but the entire time, all we kept hearing about was what a positive influence he was, even when it wasn't materializing on the field. Now it is. And I think, that room, the culture play, honestly, of the season so far is Silas Bowden. All of us should have been like, that guy's the culture warrior. I'm talking about a guy that room, but he's the real culture warrior that had that play against Oklahoma that really, that's probably the play of the season. When we look back on it, we're not done yet. So hopefully we got some more game-winning touchdowns and some big plays. But when you look back on it, it's going to be hard for me to see a play that was more impactful and that was more symbolic of the Texas culture than what Silas Bowden did in that OU game.
I completely agree.
Right? That's maybe I should have went there. I just talked myself into another player. All right, let's get to a couple of questions here, and then we'll come back to some of the questions for the midseason review. Tex-Mex Horn 94 says, Rod, Coach Shipley, and CJ, should we expect the best version of this team for the final 4 games? If we don't get that, I don't know if we'll make it to Atlanta, let alone the playoff. Thank you very much, Tex-Mex Horn 94. I will say a 10-2 Texas, and I'm not saying they're going to lose another game, just saying. If they do lose just one more, they still make the playoffs, in my opinion. I'm not sure they make the SEC title game, but they will, in my opinion. I think they make the playoffs at 10-2. Now, you 9-3, I don't think you have a shot. 10-2 Texas is still too sexy to pass up.
Yeah, I tend to agree too. And I mean, I could even ask the question for our next, topic theme award, Rod. What's been the best version of Texas? We'll get to that here in a sec, but for me, if Texas can find 35 points in a game offensively, they've won. I don't see a Texas defense allowing 35, 36 points, more than 5 scores defensively to the remaining teams on the Texas roster or schedule. And now 35 points on the road in Fayetteville and College State, that's going to be tough. But if that's kind of the bar that you're hoping for is 5 drives where you find the end zone, Texas has been just right around there for every single game this year, except for, obviously, the Georgia game. You fumbled opportunities against Mississippi State, fumbled opportunity against Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. There was 2 interceptions there, fumbled a couple drives in the second half in which it was all self-inflicted. Teams aren't stopping Texas, but Texas is stopping Texas. Yep. If they can get that cleaned up, they'll find the end zone. They'll get back to the offense that we saw earlier in the year. And with that said, with that defense, the way that's playing behind you, it's got to be encouraging that you need 30 points basically to win a football game. That's going to be tested, obviously, when these playoff games come rolling around. But that's really all I need, 35 points. If Texas can find that offensively, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I don't see a lot of teams driving. If the Texas doesn't give up short fields like they did versus Georgia, you're not marching the length of that field against the Texas defense multiple times in the game. You may do it once, which has happened, or actually once in the last 2 games. They've allowed a touchdown drive, or a scoring drive, I should say, over 38 yards, I believe it was. 2 out of the last 10, I believe, is the research you put out there, CJ. Yeah, man, that defense is really, it's tough, man. That is a stingy Texas defense. We still got to start looking at historically where it is amongst the great defenses in Texas football history, but it's going to be right there in the conversation with some of the all-time greats. Thank you, Tex-Mex Horn 94. We appreciate the question. How about this one from Frank? Frank says, why do y'all think the secondary improved? I'll throw it out there to you, Coach. I mean, I have my thoughts, but Coach, why do you think the secondary had such a dramatic improvement? I mean, last year, I mean, they were a liability in the spring game, let alone last season against Washington. We've seen them just light up this Texas secondary, and they have made a dramatic kind of 180 overall. What are your thoughts? What's the biggest reasons for it, biggest factors in it?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of reasons that all come together to create the good secondary that we have. One of those is guys just self-reflecting and just being embarrassed, you know, from the way they played. You know, golly, bowl game, spring game. I mean, you know, it just wasn't. And then another thing is, you know, the coaching. And I'm not sure, you know, how much, you know, when Johnny came in from Arizona, I'm not sure how much that impacted, you know, the versatility of our secondary and the new looks maybe that were given some people. But I also think, and I said this last year, defending our coaches, that, you know, there's these guys aren't idiots. They're at the University of Texas for a reason. You know, they're good coaches, dang good coaches. And so you got to give those guys credit too. I feel like they had the athletic ability back there. They just weren't playing as a group. You know, they just were not gelling as a group together and feeding off each other, maybe communicating with each other, whatever it is. But I think it's Johnny Nansen maybe had something to do with it. I kind of feel like maybe that's what you think, Rod. I don't know. I mean, I know you think a lot of what he's done for our defense, but the players themselves just self-reflecting and saying, hey, I'm not going to be the weak spot on this team. Then the coaching staff saying, hey, our room is not going to be the weak spot on this team. We're going to get better. We have the ability. We know that the ability is back there, but it's just been so fun to watch them this season after, you know, after last season, especially at the end of the season.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's a lot of, I think you're right, Coach. I think some of it is the scheme with Johnny Nansen. He's brought in some more exotics. The communication, though, is a big part of it. The communication has improved tremendously. They talk a lot more in the secondary. With each other and communicate. You could just watch them. Last year, a lot of times they were not talking to each other because they weren't confident. A confident secondary is communicating, voicing verbally the keys, the things they see. And I see a lot of that back there, which means they're doing it on the sideline too. If you're not talking on the field, then something tells me you're not communicating effectively on the sideline either. So I think all of that is happening. All plus a schematic advantage now. I think you got more edge pressure coming off, right? I think that's also another factor in the improvement. The emphasis on versatility, big part of it too. Even Jahdae Barron, I think he's the most versatile defensive back in the country. But they cross-train guys and they emphasize and prioritize cross-training guys at multiple spots. I think that also helps. And they just have better coverage defenders now in the secondary, period. And Makuba, better coverage defender. He plays. Malik Muhammad now starter, better coverage defender. Jahdae Barron starting that corner, better coverage defender. Jalen Gilbo. They just have better coverage guys in the secondary, period. Last year, not that you'd have good football players, but they were not coverage specialists. All right. And nothing wrong with Keaton Crawford and those guys. These guys made play. Terrence Brooks, they made plays for you, but they were not coverage specialists. And I think now you got guys that can just flat out cover in the secondary.
I think on top of that, it's guys that play instinctually. Right. You know, you look at two individual plays that really highlight that. It was the Jahdae Barron interception week 1 against Colorado State, where he's not in any sort of position to turn, run, find some work and come away with almost a Willie Mays style interception there. And then again, it was Andrew Makuba against Georgia, the first interception of the game for the Longhorns. The way that he just kind of found work, got to a position, made a play on the ball and came away with a big splash interception for the Longhorns. You didn't see that a year ago. Right? You had guys maybe in the right spot, but it wasn't guys going above and beyond what was expected. And that's the mark of a great team, and especially in the secondary. That's what you need. Those are the plays that you need to become an elite level defense. And you're seeing that right now more than you have in the last, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years from the secondary. It's been really impressive, and it's coming from multiple guys at multiple positions, which is just as much encouraging as any type of conversation that we could be having elsewhere with this secondary.
Yep. And they've done that because you're right. They refer to it as robbing the post, or you can kind of rob the middle of the field when you don't have work. Makuba just robbed that 6 route and run the field. Janae Barron robbed the post from the opposite side of the field. And Javion Cole's interception is also one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Remember, he also went to rob the post. He went and found work, as you said, CJ. So that just shows higher football IQ, a better understanding overall of the defense and everybody's responsibilities. So you're not just, you basically widen your lens as a DB. You're not just seeing your side of the formation now. Shows you, CJ, these guys are seeing the entire formation and the route combinations and how they can insert themselves. Even on the opposite side of the formation, insert themselves as an impact player. No, it's there's no doubt you were not seeing that before.
Right.
Good question there, Frank. Appreciate that. All right, how about this one from V Brown? Does the 2005 Texas team beat UGA? Yeah, of course they do. This UGA team, they don't. That's no doubt. This Georgia team, they are. I kind of refer to them as the flip the switch version. Every dynasty toward the end of it, they become kind of a flip the switch version of themselves. It's happening right now in Kansas City. Toward the end of the dynasty, you start to see the cracks and everything. And they right now, everybody can play with Kansas City. They're still undefeated, but they know how to flip the switch in clutch time in the fourth quarter. When it's winning time, they've been there so much. They have the championship pedigree. They know, all right, I know the difference between competing and it's clutch and winning time. And Georgia did it to Texas. We saw that. The team that we watched on film, that was not the Georgia team that came out there and mollywopped Texas. No, they flipped the switch on Texas. And great teams who've been competing at a championship level for a long time, they do have that ability, and that's what this Georgia team did. This Georgia team is far from what the Georgia teams were in the prime of this, the heyday of their dynasty. I'm not saying they're at the end of it, but they are not what they were two years ago in the middle of this dynasty. They are a much more flawed version of it, but don't get it twisted. They will flip the switch on you fast. And they will start looking like a championship team at any moment because they got it in them. They got it in them.
Good point.
Yeah. Do we have it in us? Is the question for Texas. That's this question. Does Texas have it in them? Because Texas has not been there. They right now don't necessarily. They haven't proven they have championship pedigree. Last year was their first time competing for a championship. You want to do it 2 or 3 years, so it starts to become part of the DNA of the program. And that's what you're aiming toward this year for championship DNA. That's what Georgia got. They got championship DNA. All right. Good question there, though, about that. How about this one? Tennessee Longhorn. Is Vandy our best win so far? I don't know if that'll be good enough. Michigan win don't look too good no more. That's not I don't know if that's a quality win anymore. Vandy might be the best quality win Texas has. I agree with that. That schedule or strength of schedule conversation and coming into the year, it felt really good, right? You got defending champs, you got Georgia, you got Oklahoma, you got Texas A&M at the end. Weren't expecting Vanderbilt to be where they were, but those are 4 opportunities to go out there and showcase the team that you had. Well, now 2 of those teams are unranked, right? Oklahoma's looking like a complete dud. Michigan, almost the same place where they got guys like me back there playing quarterback and you have no real offense. You got no real identity for either of those teams. What does that mean for Texas? And this was the big argument that I had coming into really the Georgia game, because that would have been Texas's first real test. It was Texas's first real test. But when you look at how Texas was beating those bad teams, it was handedly. Those games were never in doubt. Texas didn't beat Kentucky 13-12, right? That was kind of my point was, yeah, the strength of schedule wasn't great for Texas, but they were beating the brakes off of teams, right? The closest they were was a 20-point win over Michigan on the road in Ann Arbor, in which they kind of took their foot off the gas in the second half. You could point it, and that's my big argument again, is Texas did what they needed to do. They were a good team playing bad teams, and they looked like the good team. That's great, but when it comes down to it, who is their best win?
it's undoubtedly Vanderbilt at the moment. Luckily, they'll have some opportunities to go up and face Arkansas, take care of Florida, go on the road to play a top 10 Texas A&M team. Got to come away with some sort of splash win, especially with college playoff picture that's really condensed at the moment with a lot of teams vying to get in.
Yeah, no, it's just lurking, man. That Texas A&M game down the line. I mean, it really is almost seems unfathomable what the magnitude of that game could be if both teams take care of business on their way in. I mean, it'd be the biggest Texas A&M game in the history of the rivalry. Just seems crazy that you could say that the first time they play in almost a decade and a half. All right. Thank you, Tennessee Longhorn. We appreciate that one, that question. We appreciate that. Let's thank another one of our sponsors before we move on here. Let's thank our friends over at South Point Dodge. We appreciate them as well. So if you're looking for a new car, or you're looking for even a used car, how about you visit our friends over at South Point Dodge, folks? They have a great selection of vehicles right now. As a matter of fact, they have over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop. You can score big today at South Point Dodge. And speaking of scoring big, right now, they have a great deal happening with over 50 Ram 2500s, all marked down with huge savings right now at South Point Dodge. So you can visit them in person up I-35 in South Austin, or you can visit them online at southpointdodge.com, and you can go check out their inventory there as well. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is the one-stop shop. Austin's automotive everything, southpointdodge.com. Thank you very much to our friends over at South Point Dodge. All right, guys, I know we got a couple of questions that we'll hit here before we get to the end of our live stream, but I got a couple of more questions in our kind of mid-season review here. This one is, who's the best newcomer to the team? Transfer portal acquisition, could be freshman that came in your opinion. Could be anybody. Best newcomer, in your opinion. Who is it? Coach, I'll throw it at you first. Best newcomer to this Texas roster based on what you've seen so far.
That's a tough one. But
it is a tough one.
I'd have to say Ryan Wingo.
Ooh. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that.
Ryan Wingo. I mean, we knew right when he arrived on campus, we started hearing the buzz on this guy, and he has not disappointed. We've talked about this a lot. There's just not enough balls to go around, but he gets my vote. Best newcomer.
Yeah, that is good. CJ, what are your thoughts? Can't go wrong with that, man. I'm such a Wingo fan. What are your thoughts? Best newcomer. Oh, CJ, you're on mute, brother.
My bad. I actually like Matthew Golden, believe it or not. I'm going to stick in the wide receiver room. I say that because, listen, I think when Texas gets into the red area, he provides something, and Wingo does too. We just haven't seen it as much necessarily. His one-on-one route winning ability is something that Texas desperately needed in terms of taking that step from a year ago in red zone execution and efficiency. He's been tremendous. Michigan game, we saw it against Vanderbilt. I mean, the one-handed catch that he had, I think Matthew Golden's been tremendous. He provides something for you in the return game as well. But beyond that, beyond just the pass catching, the route winnings, he's that guy that you can rely on now as an extra cracking a linebacker. He can come into the box and provide a little spunk for you in that running game, something that Texas desperately needed in terms of getting 4 or 5 yard runs into 10, 12, 1,500. Right. You get my point there, but he's been really good. I really like Matthew Golden and the way that he does the dirty work very well for this Texas offense. I like him so far. Bond a close second, just in the sense that, he provides something that I don't think any of these Texas wide receivers have, and that's just straight line, big playability.
Yeah. Yeah, man, those are both great. Hard not to go into that receiver room.
There's so many options.
Yeah, with the best newcomers. I'm going to go outside the box here. And I wasn't trying to cheat, but I just thought about it, so I'm going outside the box. I'm going to go with Johnny Nansen. I'm going to go with Johnny Nansen.
That's way outside the box, Rod.
It is outside the box, but it's a newcomer, so I still fits. He's a newcomer, but I have not seen the Texas defense. They got great players, but I've not seen this defense this diverse. I haven't seen it with this much variety. PK is a great defensive mind, great defensive coordinator, but he doesn't like exotic looks. He doesn't get into that a lot. It is one of the calling cards of Johnny Nansen. And I think the creative collaboration between the two has really helped take this defense schematically to another level. The NASCAR dime we've seen, right? We've seen the way they use Colin Simmons and the way they're moving Anthony Hill around and all these different packages and different looks. And so I'm going to go with Dunning. And linebackers are playing well, so he's coaching his guys up. There's no doubt about that. But I think overall, the defense, him as a co-DC, I'm seeing a lot of his ideas that are being deployed by the Texas defense and being deployed really, really well. So I think that's also something that adds a little bit of an advantage for the Texas defense that they hadn't had in previous years.
That's good stuff.
Throwing out there. So there you go. I'm outside the box there, but yeah, you guys are right. I was also going to go with Makuba. Makuba's been awesome. You brought him up too. It's hard. I mean, I love what Makuba's brought to the table as a newcomer. I mean, he's been fantastic for Texas back there. Yep. Cisco, I'm with you. Someone says, does LaFau count? I don't know if is he technically a newcomer? Colin Simmons, now that's can't go wrong with Colin Simmons either. He's been a beast there. All right, there you go. A couple other questions here that have been asked, and we'll get back to some of our questions for the mid-season review. But here, V. Brown says, are the defensive ends underachieving or are they on schedule? Yeah, I know a lot of people were upset about this. We've talked about this with Trey Moore a little bit too, and not having enough of those splash and havoc plays. You know, I still think the defensive ends have been a strength for you, and you're not getting as many sacks as we thought we'd get. But you know, they haven't been a liability by any stretch. I mean, those defensive ends, the edges have been a strength for you. You just haven't gotten the sacks, right, CJ? You haven't gotten a lot of those big plays out of that group. Well, honestly, it's more Trey Moore, but I think that is kind of reflective of a lot of people's perception of the edge group right now that, hey, we haven't gotten what we were promised, which was lots of sacks, you know, potentially breaking the Texas record for sacks in the season. We haven't gotten that. And that's probably on us for pumping up the expectations for that group.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Barron Sorrell's been a consistent piece off the edge, both in the run game and the pass game. He's been disruptive. Ethan Burke, when given about 18 to 20 snaps per game, is a guy who has been very disruptive in the passing game. His length, his ability to get a hand up, deflect passes, Texas got a takeaway off of that, right? And obviously Colin Simmons, I mean, you could add Anthony Hill into that. The two of them have combined for 10 sacks this year. I mean, I would hate to be a quarterback on third down, looking over at one edge, seeing Anthony Hill, looking over the other edge, seeing Colin Simmons, and thinking, how in the hell am I going to convert this 3rd and 9? That can't be easy. So it may be a little overblown coming in the year by us. You know, I'll put my hand up. I was expecting a lot, especially from Trey Moore. Statistically, it's not there, but the impact is. And that's where I think that there's maybe a bit of a disconnect. 2 games specifically that we've seen from Trey Moore, the last 2 for Texas, right? He had that incompletion on kind of the shovel pass close to Vanderbilt's own end zone on 3rd and 8, forced a punt. Against Georgia, he pushed his right tackle defender right into the lap of Carson Beck. He skies a play, a pass over the middle, and it's intercepted by Andrew Makuba. That doesn't happen if it's not for the pressure that's generated by Trey Moore. So the stats maybe not indicative of the performance that he's providing for the Longhorns, but the impact certainly is there. And I think that's encouraging as Texas moves on into this final 4-game stretch.
Yeah, the Texas defense is elite in some areas, and it's just that's not one of the areas at getting a ton of sacks. But I think ultimately, as a cohesive unit, the defense is, like I said, it's one of the best in the country. You can make the argument it's the best. I think they're 2nd in scoring defense right now, 1st in total defense, I believe, 3rd in pass defense, somewhere around there. Really hard to even complain that any part of that defense is underachieving. How about this one from Ted Apari? One, he says, was wondering if we are just seeing more calls by SEC refs since the infamous bottles on the field incident versus Georgia. I will admit I have not been keeping track of it. Not sure, if we've seen more or less penalties on the field, or less penalties in SEC play because of that. I'm not sure. I'm not. You guys, any thoughts about it?
No.
Yeah, I think for Texas, just getting their penalties under control is going to. They got 18 in the last 2 games, so they can't really. I don't know if I'm going to go into conspiracy theory yet. I know some Longhorn fans are there. I think it's more Texas adjusting to a new ecosystem of officiating in the SEC as opposed to the Big 12, and I think this will be a good bye week. Will be a good time for them to adapt and acclimate to what the new officiating interpretation of holding is and all those different things. I think that's more what it is. Who I am now, I may be on the conspiracy theory. I may be on the grassy knoll by the end of the year. Give me some time. Right now, I'm going to go with they got to adapt and they got to, acclimate to it. There you go. So there you go. How about this one from Josh? He says, have y'all seen a tell with the O-line that would lead to knowing whether it's a run or a pass? It would help if you had access to the all 22 view all the time. The one with the big butt view, coach, where you can see all the linemen and you can see it would help to have that. I don't have that view. I usually every now and then I've been sent like a copy, but I don't have that access to that with any regular access. So I can't tell you. You notice anything, coach? You probably watch line play more than the rest of us.
I haven't. Of course, the coaches and the teams have a lot more views and angles to break down than we do. They've got a tight view. They've got a wide view. They've got an end zone. They might even have an overhead. I don't know. Maybe a tight end zone and a wide end zone probably is the way they used to do it. So I guess there was four views that they got. I haven't seen anything, but that's certainly something that, every coaching staff is looking at. Whether people can break the code or not, I don't know. But I've seen some things that once they're pointed out, they're so obvious it makes you wonder why nobody else picked up on them earlier. Because once you start seeing it, you go, yeah, well, every time he's in this stance, he does this. That's a big deal. And don't think that people aren't doing that. But hopefully we have people that are doing the same thing, trying to look at some tendency break, look at some things that we're doing that could be giving a play away. It could be as simple as a guy's the angle of his butt, whether it's higher or lower, whether a foot's further back than the other one. mean, there's just so many different things like that you can look at.
Coach, we once found out a receiver, he would wipe his hands on his pants every time he was about to get a target. It was crazy. Like it was like he already knew, like, all right, I'm about to get it. And he would start wiping his hands before the play. It was like, all right, there you go. And it's the weird thing, he would make sure his gloves were dry. Strange thing, but you're right. So it's a weird things you can find. You're like, okay, all right. Strange stuff, man. Strange.
You know what they say? You know what they say, Coach? The eye in the sky.
Right,
don't lie.
It never lies. So one thing, there was one play specifically for Texas against Georgia that maybe it was just a tendency play. Maybe there was a tip, right? And I don't know if it was a tell specifically, but Texas went in motion with DeAndre Moore. It was a return motion. So he came across the line of scrimmage and then he kind of just, I don't know if it was an orbit. I don't know if it was just an immediate return, but there's a close-up angle from the broadcast, which had kind of the butt angle, right? It was behind the play where you see the offensive line, you see everything in front. And at the time, you see the Georgia defensive end kind of just shoo out the outside linebacker, just outside zone, outside zone, outside zone.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened. It was a run to Trey Wisner, outside zone. Gunnar Helm, Kelvin Banks, they ended up blocking it pretty well. Texas gained 3 or 4 yards, but instead of biting on the motion, instead of kind of going through the reads and progressions, you had an edge rusher and you had an outside linebacker, both immediately fitting towards the outside for a zone play. Wow. Now, again, Texas gained 3 or 4 yards. And maybe it was just a tendency, or maybe it was just something that Kirby Smart picked up on in film. Let's not forget he's a good coach. It's smart football players on his team. But it's stuff like that, and it's tendencies, it's tells, it's whatnot that gets you beat, especially against the Georgia team, a team that has equal or more talent to you. You can't have that. So I've not seen anything in film study. Trust me, I watch these games pretty often.
Yeah,
it's a Tuesday night. We got no NFL on. I'm going to be rewatching Texas versus ULM just to see if there's anything there. I've not seen anything offensively, but that was something that I couldn't not recognize, was Georgia just being heady football players and making a good play there.
Yeah. No, I'm with that. I think that's just Kirby Smart. He's got his guys dialed in on tendencies and conceptual signatures. They played such a heady they were so prepared in that game. You can tell those guys, to that point that you just made, that example you gave. There were numerous examples of guys just being dialed in on the tendencies of Texas and Sark. That's why in big games you got to break tendency.
Right.
Have you seen the documentary Sign Stealer?
Oh, with Connor Stallions?
Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah, on Netflix. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, Netflix. Yeah. It just, some people are so obsessed with things like that, like stealing signs or finding any edge at all you can get, and teams that have those kind of compulsive people on their staff are going to probably turn over more rocks and find more things than the typical, because they're just obsessed with finding any little thing. If it's stealing a signal, if it's a stance, or whatever it is, a hand gesture, audible or whatever, they're just obsessed with it, like the sign stealer. He was obsessed with it, and finding his team an edge. And I think there's probably a lot more of that going on than we know of, and it'd be really interesting to hear and know of some of the stories that broke a team's back because they had somebody that was so compulsive on the other team that broke the code.
Oh no, that's one of the great stories about that, Coach. I'm sure you know it. And one of the Super Bowls between the Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills, Jimmy Johnson is just watching. He's just watching the news. I think one like the local news or something, and they have some B-roll footage of the Bills at practice. You can go look this up. I'm sure the story's on YouTube. And Jimmy Johnson said he saw on that B-roll footage the Bills practicing a shovel pass, and he goes to ask his defensive coordinator. He says, "Hey, you've been watching film, right?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You remember a shovel pass on that film you watching with Buffalo?" He's like, "I don't think so. I'll go back and check it out, Coach, but I don't remember no shovel pass." So he goes back, checks out the film, comes back to Jimmy, said, "Jimmy, ain't no shovel pass on that film, Coach. They're practicing that shovel pass for the Super Bowl. They're putting it in for the Super Bowl." Jimmy had his guys dialed in. I believe Cowboys fan, let me know if I'm mistaken. They recover a fumble off of that, and they get like multiple tackles for loss in that game on that shovel pass. And it's all because Jimmy Johnson. This is why coaches are paranoid about practice and stuff, because that Jimmy Johnson story. Go look it up. That basically he found it on a B-roll, found out that they were practicing the shovel pass, hadn't seen it in any film because he's one of them dudes you're talking about, Coach, and then decided, all right, guys, when you see the running back turn around in the hole and you see the quarterback who looks like he's up to something fishy, it's a shovel pass. Go intercept it or go to the point of attack. And they did. Go look at that story. Go Google it. Jimmy tells it better than I did. But that is one of the examples you're talking about, Coach. And there's a ton of examples like that everywhere. Hell, Bill Belichick had a library of footage, all right, and Spygate just off that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's that's I always remember that story because I was like, man, you never know. Yep, that's it. Thank you, Matthew.
Yep, they ran it 3 times.
Yep. Look at that. 3 times, and we actually got a fumble on one of the biggest plays of the game. Yeah. Like 3 times. Yep.
Yeah.
That last line, that's Jim Kelly's entire career, man.
And he didn't lay Jim. Yeah, that sucks for Jim Kelly. That does. That's terrible. All right, but yeah, you just reminded me of it, Coach. Thank you, Matthew, for pulling that up. I really, really appreciate that. All right, let's thank another one of our sponsors. I know we're getting close to the end of our live stream. We'll answer a few more questions. And then we'll get to the end of it here because I know y'all want to get to some of y'all trick or treating. Let's thank our friends over at Hardcore Roofing first, with offices all over Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas, including here in Austin, Texas. Hardcore Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn friendly, folks, with partners like lifetime Longhorn Bert Arbin, who we had an autograph signing with, and that was a lot of fun. Also, we have my man, lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, former teammate of mine. He comes on with us on Monday, courtesy of our good friends at Hard Grove Roofing. They're the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. So if you want to support the Longhorns, you support Hard Grove Roofing, and they'll support you right back. As a matter of fact, they're offering a free roof inspection right now. So if you wondering what's going on with your roof and you're a little bit afraid to go up there yourself, you don't need to be going up there yourself. Don't worry about it. Leave it to the professionals, our friends over at Hard Grove Roofing. And right now they're offering you a free roof inspection free 99. You won't get better than that. That's the best price you'll get. Hardgrove Roofing, know who's on your roof, and we appreciate them. Check out hardgroveroofing.com, 512-645-3202. That is hardgroveroofing.com, and we appreciate them for sponsoring the winning drive. All right, gentlemen, I got a couple of other random questions for you. How about this one? Whose draft stock has increased the most, in your opinion, based on what you've seen so far this season? Could be a guy that wasn't on any draft radars at all. Could be a guy that, maybe he was on draft radar, but now you see this guy going from a 6th round pick to like a mid-round pick or even an early round pick. Who's increased their draft stock the most among the Longhorns faithful so far this season? Coach, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but going with Gunnar Helm.
Say it, Coach. Again, hey, it is what it is. It is what it is.
It really is. And I think, CJ, was it you that brought up the fact that we're not using the same delay type drag routes we used with Sanders for some reason with Helm? I don't understand why we haven't seen that. It was a very effective play for Sanders, and we have just seemed like we've abandoned it for some reason.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the middle of the field passing game to the tight ends is there this year, right? And that could be a seam, it could be a delay, it could be the wide twist where it's kind of a flood concept for the tight end. You haven't seen it that much this year. So I don't know, Coach. I don't know what the reasoning is, but Helm's gotten his money's worth, that's for sure. He leads the team in receiving, just not the splash plays down the field.
But that seemed to be a play that worked every time we ran it.
Every time.
So I don't know why we would just abandon it.
I'm with you.
But anyway, that's my pick.
It's a good one.
Yeah. I think Gunnar Helm has like 9 receptions, like 9 explosive receptions on the season. So he is getting some explosive receptions, but I'm with you, CJ. I don't know why those concepts are no longer being deployed. Maybe he's saving them. I have no idea. That's a good question.
Could be. Yeah. I'll go with Vernon Broughton. I think that was a guy that was perhaps an undrafted free agent coming into the year. And the way that he's played, he's consistently been the best interior defensive lineman for Texas. And that's not to take away from Alpha Collins because he's been good, especially as of the last 3 weeks or so. But Vernon Broughton's been tremendous. And I think that was a surprise coming in, especially I mentioned it earlier. Texas going out and getting 3 guys out of the portal. That told me that they didn't trust or have the depth that they wanted to compete in the SEC. I think Vernon Broughton's kind of shut that up. He's been great.
Yep, he has been great. Hard not to go. Those are 2 good suggestions. Hard not to go with Jade. I see a couple people throwing out Jade. Hard not to go with Jade because, I think he probably went from being a guy considered to be a 4th round pick somewhere in there, maybe 3rd round. I don't know if he's going to be a 1st round pick. I don't know about that. That's a freaks. He's got to go to combine and test and run really well and all that kind of stuff. But I do think he's increased his draft stock a lot. Another guy might be Barron Sorrell. I think if you're watching film on Barron Sorrell as an NFL scout, it's hard not to be impressed with his just consistency. He's just consistent and against the run, has improved as a pass rusher too. Barron Sorrell might be that guy for me because I don't know when I first saw Barron Sorrell out there if I was thinking, oh no, that guy's playing in the league. And I think he's transformed his body and his game into being an NFL player.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. I think now, like I look at him and I go, oh yeah, Sundays. I see that guy playing on Sundays. And I don't know if I always thought that with Barron Sorrell. So I'm not sure where he went from undrafted or late round pick to mid round pick. I'm not sure about all that, but his draft stock has definitely increased in my opinion, just of how consistent that he's been. So there you go. Just the guys we think have improved their draft stock the most. Also, I had a question here too about the breakout star, but I imagine that's probably the same person. So I won't even get that because I know Coach will say Gunnar Helm. So I won't even get to the breakout.
Okay, but what's the opposite of this question? Which one has lost draft stock?
Let's get into that then.
You had actually mentioned that as something you may talk about.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, Coach. I think it's a good discussion to have. Who do we think whose draft stock has been hurt the most, has actually dipped the most because of the performance?
Okay, it's kind of like the elephant in the room. None of us want to say it,
I'll say it. It's Quinn, right? It's Quinn. Unfortunately, I hate to. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why I didn't want to bring it up.
It is. I hate to pile on, but I mean, Texas had the number one running back taken off the board the last 2 years. They had a guy that had elite, tremendous speed, and I don't think right now that you're going to see him get drafted. Talking about Jaden Blue. I need to see more out of the running game specifically. I love what I see when Texas gets him the ball in space, but that running game, that's not draftable. Not in this draft class.
Yeah. Ooh, I agree with you about that. Somebody says Nye Black. Ooh, yeah, he just got his first serious bit of playing time versus Vandy, so maybe that's changing. But I think universally everybody is saying Quinn. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, if Quinn goes out there in these next 4 games and then including postseason games, and he looks like the best version of himself, I get that draft stock to go back up and be on the incline. But I think right now it's pretty clear. And it's crazy because the Michigan game, he increased his draft stock after the Michigan game. So we're talking about essentially a 3-game sample size here, where we're talking about Quinn Ewers' draft stock being, I guess, dipping to a certain extent. I still think because they overdraft quarterbacks, they can still end up being a first rounder, even if he's not considered one of the top quarterbacks in the class. I mean, that's just the way the quarterback, just because of the value of it. Same thing with Jaden Blue, as you talked about there, CJ. The reason Jaden Blue is not going to get drafted is because of the value of the running back position now. Because the first running back won't be taken until either late in the first round, Ashton Janty, or, you won't have many running backs taken in the first 2 rounds, period, because they don't draft running backs that high. So, yeah, at one point, people were talking about Quinn as the first quarterback taken in the draft. Randy says, does Campbell fit in that category because he may come back now? I looked at a mock draft like 3 weeks ago, like probably before the regression on offense for Texas, and they had him projected as a top 50 pick in the upcoming draft. I don't know if that's still going to be the case, but that was the case prior to I think some of the regression that we've seen from him and from the offense overall.
I agree.
But if I'm Campbell and if I'm projected to be a 2nd-round pick, don't you just leave?
I'm day 2. I'm out.
Yeah, just I 3rd round. Nothing wrong with that, man. As the lineman, you're playing for the 2nd contract anyway.
You go in the top 100 picks.
That's kind of how I feel too. All right, I do want to throw this out there. We do have a interview coming to On Texas Football of the Rodney Terry sitting down talking to the On Texas Football guys. I know we're always talking about football, but he's obviously Texas basketball coach, head coach Rodney Terry. That's going to be available, and we'll have that up for you. As a matter of fact, we'll have a preview for that. My man Matthew has already got that posted for you guys. So there you go. So just keep in mind, if you're getting ready for basketball, you want a little something to get you to kind of wet your palate for basketball season. We have a Rodney Terry interview coming to the website at ontexasfootball.com, so you can go check that out as well. All right, I know we're getting close to the end of our live stream, so I appreciate all you guys for being with us, and I appreciate all of your questions and all the comments, your participation. The interview is up. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. The interview is already up there. See, Matthew's working hard. We appreciate him. So go check out that Rodney Terry interview. It's already up at ontexasfootball.com. Go check it out for yourself. I do want to thank Matthew for all of his hard work. Thanks to all of our sponsors. I want to thank our good friends over at Flat Creek, flatcreekestate.com. Would love also to thank good friends at South Point Dodge, Hardgrove Roofing as well, and duckcamp.com. Coach, thank you for your time. Appreciate you. CJ, appreciate you. Don't get too crazy on Halloween, man. Be safe out there. Everybody out there, please enjoy your Halloween holiday. Remember, tomorrow you can join us for our Force Coffee and Football starting at 8 a.m. And then we'll have our 1 p.m. live stream tomorrow for Fridays. Until then, and also next time, for Coach and for CJ and for Matthew and for all of our great sponsors as well, Longhorns, and happy Halloween.